personally would like to not pay any income tax at all. That would be so nice. They take so much money. They're so mean. It's so not fair. And then even when you file your taxes and you get an accountant and you pay the accountant to file your taxes because taxes are too complicated a lot of times to file yourself, which also
intentionally.
It shouldn't be so complicated that you have to pay somebody else to do it for you, especially when the government knows how much you owe. Like, why am I doing this? It's like $700 to pay the accountant, and then they file the taxes, and then the IRS gets back to me and they're like, actually, you owe us another $5 million. It's like ridiculous. It's not fair. So on that level, that would be great. On the other hand, it makes sense that Trump loves the Gilded Age, which was really bad for labor. I mean, all the Carnegies and the Rockefellers and all of the robber barons and the train companies, they all got rich off of the backs of people eating dirt and being their friends' bicycles and, not being able to make a decent living. And here in West Virginia, of course, like with the coal miners, that was a big issue too. Like coal miners had, they worked in the coal mines. They lived in housing provided by the company. They paid rent to their landlord, which was their boss, and they got paid a lot of times in scrip, which they could only spend at the company store, which is why we needed labor unions in the first place, was to liberate people from this indentured servitude. So if we could,
so communist right now.
I know I'm into. I think private sector unions are worthwhile. Ooh, not public sector unions, but if we could obliterate income tax by making foreign countries pay all of our bills, that would be cool. So long as we don't just exploit a bunch of American workers.
I heard someone talking about a consumption tax as well. Is that something that you guys think?
What's a consumption tax? Like you buy a boat, like Lux tax?
No. So instead of having a tax on making money, there's a federal tax on spending money. So there's
a sales tax.
So it's
on
like
everything?
like a sales tax on everything.
There should still not be sales tax on food.
Well, what do you guys think?
I don't like any kind of tax.
Well, of course not. Who likes taxes?
But it's a little socialistic to take away 25-30% of our income. So I'm not a big fan of it. I don't like it. And it disincentivizes people to work hard. You see it all the time in your personal life. Why work harder when you're going to go up in and just end up paying more?
And then they just take more.
And then they just take more. I have a friend.
Do you ever get a raise?
You
get your raise and you're like, oh, there's $2 more in my paycheck. I got like a $10,000 raise.
That's the thing. As you're approaching the next tax bracket, you're actually incentivized to work less, because if you go into the next tax bracket, you have to go significantly into the next tax bracket to actually make money, because you'll go into the next tax bracket by, say you go in by $10,000 or whatever, and it's like, oh, look, you owe an extra $25,000 in taxes. So you literally will take home less because you went into another tax.
I have a friend who owns a small business. He's a veteran. It's a veteran-owned small business. His name's Ben Wanzer in San Antonio, and they do commercial buildings. And he was telling me not only how much money he was losing because overhead has gone up exponentially in the last 4 years under Biden, to the point that he thought he was going to have to close a successful business down. Yeah. But he was scared, as you said, Phil, to go up into the next tax bracket. He said, there's no reason for me. I'm just going to get hit harder. So, I mean...
My band, All It Remains, like we did a tour in 2022, and then we did another tour just this past... in August and September, and the overhead, the expense of the tour in 2024 was significantly more than the expense in 2022. I was looking at some of the prices that we were paying for things, just for people. We had fewer people on the crew on this tour because we were doing a support tour as opposed to a headline tour, so we weren't carrying our own lighting package and stuff like that. And we still spent more. We spent more money on overhead on this tour than we did on the previous tour. In the previous tour, I think we had like 6 people on our crew, and on this one we had 4.
Wow. He said
and we didn't have a light. Like I said, we didn't have a lighting rig on this one. We had a lighting rig on the other one. So I mean, like, it was drastically more expensive on this most recent one.
He said the cost of his materials went up 400% under Biden.
Insane.
He said, I can't make a profit, dude. He said, I'm doing all of these big commercial buildings. He does power cleaning. He goes, I can't even make a profit.
Insane. But I think that I mean, the libertarian in me is going to say, of course, taxation's bad. Taxation is actually theft. It's theft of your time. And so, there's not a bit of getting rid of taxes that I'm going to complain about. I do like the idea of using tariffs, but this is something that I continuously say that people have. They have the idea that taxes pay for things the government wants to do. They have that ingrained in their head, and that is just not the way the system works anymore. The taxation that you pay, the tax money that you pay, is destroyed. You don't pay taxes so that way the government can fund something. You pay taxes to manage inflation. If the government wants to do something, the government just prints the money. Congress passes a law, says, okay, we're going to appropriate this much money. The Federal Reserve prints it up and just pays for it. So the government doesn't need to actually tax you to pay for things. The taxation is used to manage inflation. The government has two tools. They use the interest rate, and they use taxation to manage the money supply. So the government doesn't need to tax you to pay for anything. So the reason they tax is so you have less money, because they need to take money out of circulation. So literally, there's no reason for it other than to make the American people poorer. So I'm all for getting rid of the income tax, because they actually don't need it. They just print money when they want to spend money.
But then it might exacerbate inflation.
I mean, look, there is that possibility, but right now, inflation is a problem that's like sticky, because it gets to the point where when whatever you do exacerbates inflation, right? If you increase the interest rate, right, then that'll actually become inflationary at some point. So it's really difficult to get rid of inflation once you've got that ball rolling. That's why we're still that's why they stopped cutting the interest rates.
There's actually a lot of economists in a school of thought that argue exactly that you actually make inflation worse when you raise the Fed fund rate, and it's actually not making inflation any better, and you actually prolong inflation when you raise the rate. And so there's these two schools of thought, and a lot of people think it's a settled issue, that if you raise the rate, it's going to curtail inflation, and that's not the case. It can make it worse.
Thanks for checking out this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to watch the show live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. Subscribe to this channel, and we will see you all there.